Hi, everyone. My name is Helen Garcia, and you're listening to Yellow Chair Collective, the podcast. Today is a mini episode with the number one most listened to podcast guest, Mina Yoon. How are you, Mina?
I'm good. How are
Yeah,
you?
if you all haven't listened to the episode with growing up with emotionally immature parents, Mina is our most listened to podcast episode on both YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the things. So, Mina, why don't you talk a little bit about your journey with ADHD and being a therapist with ADHD before we get started?
Yeah, so I was actually diagnosed pretty late, just I think last year. Um, so I was actually just 30, or yeah, I was 30 when I was diagnosed. And I think it kind of came as a surprise. A couple of therapists, actually, a couple of different therapists that I had sort of like brought it up, but then I think I just never thought of myself as someone with ADHD or of that as even as a possibility. And so I didn't consider it until my second therapist brought it up, and then I went and got evaluated. Um, so it's been like a huge journey of learning for me, just like about myself and kind of like understanding like my own past too, like through that
Mm,
lens. Um, and yeah, I found it like actually really validating because I think I had a tendency to think of myself as like, oh, I'm just like lazy or, not good at this or not good at that. Or, yeah, I tend to be I guess I'm just impulsive. But then um, receiving that diagnosis, I think really helped me to understand like where that might be coming from and how to manage it better. And then as a therapist, I think it's been really especially helpful because even before I was diagnosed, I had started working with a lot of ADHDers. And so receiving the diagnosis myself and kind of just learning about what it means for me and how it presents for me has actually really, really helped in my clinical work too.
mm. Well, you said that a lot of it was almost like everything made sense in reverse. And so, what
Mhm.
was it about getting diagnosed with ADHD that kind of just like illuminated everything?
Mm. I think like there were things that I had noticed about myself, like how it's really, really hard for me to focus for a long time.
Mm.
Um, like in school, I always had trouble doing the readings. Like I never did the readings. I always like took shortcuts or I just didn't read. But somehow I would still like manage to do
Yeah.
okay. Um, and then other times I would just like really fail. Like it was terrible. Um, and then also just like I noticed that I was impulsive, but I never really thought of it as like a big thing because it wasn't like I was doing anything huge,
Mm.
like, nothing that would really, really significantly disrupt my life, but just like little things like, oh, I shouldn't buy this, but I just buy it. Or um, I say something that like honestly maybe I should think about more or should not say, but then I'll just say it, or like I told myself like, oh, I'm not going to reach out to this person anymore, but then I do. So yeah, I guess like just kind of those little things that I noticed about myself, it just made a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so today for the Yellow Chair mini episode, we're talking a lot about ADHD in the holidays. And so, in the outline that we composed, the first point that I wanted to ask you is like loneliness and ADHD during the holidays. And so, why is loneliness like a heightened feeling for people with ADHD around like Christmas, New Year, Hanukkah time?
Mhm. I mean, I think first of all, just like anyone really is susceptible to heightened loneliness during the holidays. But, there are certain traits or tendencies that ADHDers have that can kind of amplify
Hmm.
it. So, like one of the things is that ADHDers tend to have like heightened emotional sensitivity and difficulty with emotional regulation. So that means they might feel their emotions more intensely or have more difficulty managing them than a neurotypical person, and everything that can come with the holiday season, like family conflict or isolation, like financial pressures, or even like FOMO. Like these things can really add to and amplify these emotions. Um, and another thing is self criticism. A lot of ADHDers tend to be quite self critical and hold some shame. And this can come up a lot during the holidays, because we tend to be gathering with family. relatives, friends we haven't seen in a while. And this can come with a lot of pressure to feel like I have something to show for myself or have an answer for a lot of the questions our relatives and friends might ask, like, when are you getting married? Are you still single? Or things about your job and career.
So
Um,
true.
and it's like, yeah, and it's like if you don't have the answer that they're expecting or they're wanting to hear, it feels bad. And especially because it's the end of the year too, a lot of people can get into kind of like reflective mode and maybe feel like, what have I even accomplished? And it just goes into this spiral of self-criticism and shame, and it can feel very like disconnecting. Like, oh, like I'm the only one I've been like left behind, or I'm the only one that hasn't accomplished A, B, and C while everyone else has. Or I'm the only one that, doesn't have a partner or things like that. And then I think one last thing I'll mention is rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is something that a lot of ADHDers experience. And this means that they might be a lot more sensitive to rejection or what feels like or is perceived to be
Hmm.
rejection. And no one likes to be rejected, but these sort of like painful feelings are really heightened and more intense
Mm.
for someone experiencing rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And again, with the holidays, there might be a lot of parties and gatherings. And if you're not invited, it can feel extra bad, or extra isolating. You can feel extra disconnected.
Yeah. So, with everything, I relate to a little bit of this as someone that's like highly sensitive, but like what methods can people with ADHD use to reframe their feelings of loneliness so that they can like take care of themselves in these moments?
Sorry, can you ask that again?
Yeah, it's all good. It's like with everything that people with ADHD go through, like there's a lot of heightened emotion. And so like how can they reframe and what strategies can they use to self-care?
Mm, mhm, mm. Yeah, I mean, I think for people with ADHD, like routine and structure can be really helpful. So, during the holiday season, naturally our routines can get thrown off, and there's a lot of change happening. So I would say it's probably important to try to maintain as much of a routine as possible, and add in like maybe extra time for self care. And I think one strength that many ADHDers have is creativity and like maybe interest in various hobbies and activities. So kind of like pouring yourself into whatever is your interest at the moment, like your hyper focus hobby, thinking of it as a time to really connect with yourself.
Mm,
Like if you're feeling lonely, a lot of that is not so much about like other people, but more about like your internal experience. So maybe thinking of that as a time to reconnect with yourself by doing things that you love that kind of like fill your cup, or um, even if you may not be doing like the traditional like festive parties or family gatherings, just meeting up like even one-on-ones or like smaller gatherings, meeting up with people that you really do feel seen by and that you really do connect with. um, I think that can be um, maybe like equally or if not more fulfilling than what we kind of like see on social media, like these like big fun festive parties and
mm,
gatherings.
yeah. What are some ways that you find helpful as Mina, as a person who is going through like the holidays as someone who lives with ADHD?
Mm. Mm. I personally love the holidays. Even though I don't celebrate the holidays like the traditional way where like, I have big family gatherings or things like that. I actually don't really see
Yeah.
family during the holidays. But I personally just love like the festivity,
Mm,
just all the colors and
hot
lights and
cocoa.
all the cute things. And um, so I really just enjoy that. Like I put up my Christmas tree super early, like in
I know
October,
that about you.
so I can
D-
enjoy it as long as
did you put the
possible.
snowman in the office? In the
I did.
I was gonna thank you for that, but I didn't know if it was you or someone else.
Oh,
So thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, just like enjoying the vibes. And then I also really like hanging out with friends, and so like I will host like a Secret Santa party or something like that, and doing like all the different like festive activities, like maybe going ice skating or going to see like Candy Cane Lane or like drinking hot chocolate at home. So like there are so many different ways to enjoy the holidays, that don't have to necessarily involve like these bigger gatherings or like or even other
Mhm.
people. Um, or it could, just like maybe one other person or two other people.
Yeah. And speaking of that, Mina, one of the points that I wanted to ask you about was ways to nurture connections during the holidays. You said that you love to host like gatherings, and so when it comes to ADHD, people with ADHD have unique energy and creativity to foster meaningful interactions. And so, what are ways that you've seen that people with ADHD can intentionally build connections while their friends might be on holiday, etc.?
Mm. I mean, I think one like common tendency that we see in people with ADHD is like
Mm,
spontaneity. Um, so I guess kind of like really taking advantage of that or making that like a strength. Well, it is a strength, but like really taking advantage of that. Um, and like if there's something that you see and you're like, oh, like I really want to do this, then either just going out to do it by yourself, or if someone's around and down to go, then like just going out and doing it. Um, or like I personally like to do like little crafts and things like that at home. Um, so yeah, I guess like really leveraging things like your spontaneity, your creativity, um, and then sometimes like if like I guess it can kind of go either way. Like sometimes in conversation, like you might have trouble sustaining focus, or you might be like really hyper focusing, and so when you do feel like maybe particularly focused that day, like that can be an opportunity for like deeper connection too. So I guess like just being really aware of what your own strengths are, or what your tendencies are, and how you can utilize that to foster more connection. And also, like I think first of all, knowing what your needs are,
mm,
because for some people, maybe like you don't even actually want to have these like big gatherings. Like maybe you just want to chill at home by yourself, or with like one friend, or with your partner or something.
mhm,
So like knowing what your needs are, what your preferences are, um, and then knowing like what your strengths are, and kind of like I guess taking advantage, like using that to foster the connection that you need.
mm. Last question for you today, Mina, for today's mini-sode. Let's move into self-compassion and joy. So for people with ADHD, that critical talk is really rampant. And so, like, what are ways that ADHDers can practice self-compassion to reduce self-critical thoughts for the holidays?
Mm. I think if self compassion is hard, and like for me too, I think self compassion is difficult. One simple way, well, simple in theory, is to shift focus from like all the things that you're criticizing yourself about to fun.
Mm,
And I think that's one thing that like ADHDers are really good at, like having fun. So instead of thinking about like, oh, like I wish, I was like this, or why aren't I like this, or, why haven't I accomplished this? Like, at least for this season, giving yourself permission to just have fun, like focus on what's fun for me. What do I like to do? Or what sounds fun right now? Um, and doing things that like make you happy, bring you joy, even if it's just like small little things. And I think that is like, it's not just about the fun itself, which I think that is very important, but it's also about like kind of reconnecting with yourself.
mm,
Like in a way you're getting to know yourself better. Like, what do I like to do? What brings me joy? And then also like um, doing things that you enjoy is a form of self care. Like you're taking care of yourself, or taking care of kind of like maybe your inner child. Yeah. And then I think naturally, like as you kind of reconnect with yourself, it's, mm, I don't want to say easier, but I think it is one way that you would kind of expand our focus from like all the criticism to include also like what do I like about myself,
mm.
um, and how can I take care of myself? So kind of like expanding that.
Yeah. I've heard that a person who has ADHD might have really a hard time meal prepping or even things with self care. And so, with learning how to have fun in those things, like, how can you leverage fun when it comes to like basic self-care routine, eating? I struggle with that too. And so selfishly, I'd love to hear what your strategies are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I think maybe like just being really creative about it. Like when we think of meal prep, well, at least when I think of meal prep, like what kind of first comes to mind is like chicken breast,
Yes.
broccoli, rice, like that kind of
Hmm.
thing. Um, and then you make like 5 days worth of it, right? But then um, maybe just like it doesn't have to look exactly like that. Like you could just make like an extra large meal
Mm,
that you
yeah.
like, and then you'll just have leftovers, and that will feed you the next day. Or maybe if you don't want to meal prep, if you don't want to cook, like you get like takeout or something, and then you just like divide that in half, and then you have a meal for next time.
So
um,
good.
yeah, or maybe even like maybe that's an opportunity for connection, and you make that like a hangout.
Mm,
You invite a friend over, and then you meal prep together,
so
and
creative,
that can
Mina.
be more fun.
You're so creative. Like like my
Thank you.
so my partner, boyfriend loves the chicken breast, rice and broccoli, but I hate that
Mm,
stuff. Like I hate eating the same thing every single day. And so that simple suggestion of why don't you just cook your favorite meal? Like cook spaghetti and meatballs, and if you have leftovers, you can have like a party, you can do it together. That's such a great way to
mm,
connect with people. But for the interest of
mhm,
time, I'm going to ask you one more question. But it's more so about like small traditions that you love doing during the holidays, just to like keep the fun alive. Cause I know that for you, like you love celebrating the holidays with friends. So what are some like the top three festivities that you love during the holidays? And then I'll let you go.
mm. Well, it's not necessarily a tradition, but one thing I love doing is wrapping gifts. Um, yeah, that just really makes me feel very festive. And it's just like wrapping paper is just so cute and pretty and glittery and whatever, you
Yeah.
know. So I think I don't know, like that's just really fun for me. And then also like hot chocolate. Um, I make it a point to have at least one hot chocolate during the holiday season, and then making it really like as fancy or as simple as you want. I personally like oat milk in it, so like heating up oat milk, or like at Trader Joe's they have like all those like little pre-packaged bombs.
Yes.
It's like a chocolate ball, and
And
it
then you
like
melt it.
it melts. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it opens up, and there's like marshmallows inside. It's like doing something fun like that. I think that's really
Is there
fun.
like a place
And
that you love buying the hot chocolate, or it's just like you just buy it from Trader Joe's and then you make the chocolate in the
yeah, no special place, like maybe like just one of those Trader Joe's things, or even just like the Swiss Miss like packets. That with oat milk, even that is just really good. Um, or like if you want to be fancy, you can use like real chocolate and like melt
I do
it.
that. Like there's my
Mm,
friend in grad school growing up, she bought like Toblerone and then she would melt the Toblerone
mm,
and then she would put like milk and then some cinnamon and nutmeg, and it was like really delicious. But all that to say,
mhm.
Mina, I'm going to respect your time and stop right here. Thank you for being on this mini-sode, and thank you for being vulnerable with us. I appreciate you. Yeah.